Okay, enough of me. Drew Cline and Vivek, can you come to the stage, please, to the riser? Yes.
Hey, it's good to see you in person. Yeah, absolutely.
Drew Cline is president of the Josiah Bartlett Center for Public Policy and host of the WFEA Morning Update. I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you, Drew. We've spoken on the radio over cell phone before, but this is better.
Yeah, this is good. So neutral arbiter here, neutral voice. So as a longtime journalist, I am here to ask questions and facilitate a conversation so you can learn from Vivek. So Vivek, thanks for coming to New Hampshire. Thanks for coming to Murphy's. I do this whenever I'm in an establishment that is letting us use their facilities, to patronize your host. So, Vivek Ramaswamy, you're here in New Hampshire. You've announced your campaign for president. So my question to you to start off the conversation is, you're from Ohio? There's a lot of good offices to run for in Ohio. Why are you running for president?
Yeah, so it's a question I actually thought about in 2022. I considered the Senate race in Ohio at that time. I actually don't fetishize holding public office at all. It's not a goal of mine in life, actually. I think there are a lot of ways.
So you're normal?
I don't know if I'm normal, but I'm not abnormal in that way. And so, I believe what Jeremy said, actually. I want to pick up where he left off. The threats to liberty today are not the threats we faced back in 1980. They show up in this new hybrid of government and business that actually is, and culture, by the way, that is far more powerful than either one of those things alone. And so I actually made a decision a couple of years ago to say that I was going to tackle this outside of government, okay? I wrote 3 books over the last 18 months. 2 of them are out. A third one's coming out this year, specifically on the ESG issue later this year. I've traveled the country. I've been to a majority of states in this country trying to educate people about the threats posed to them through their financial system, speaking to state legislatures across the country and otherwise. And then I said, you know what? Rather than just highlighting the problem, I'm going to start a company. I started a company called Strive to compete with BlackRock, which actually pushes these values. Thank you. And it's been a success. I mean, we took over, in the first 3 months, we crossed over $500 million. So I believe I was having change through the market. That was my chosen path. And from a family perspective, it was perfect, okay? But I looked myself in the mirror, all right? And if I'm being honest with myself, as much as I was traveling the country and focusing on this top-down problem, this marriage of government and business, this top-down, often World Economic Forum-driven agenda here in America in the guise of stakeholder capitalism or whatever, it takes 2 to tango, okay? What do I mean by that? There's a bottom-up piece to this, too, okay? There's a cultural problem in our country where that top-down piece wouldn't work if the people, us, we the people, didn't buy it up. Didn't buy up the victimhood narratives that they were selling. And so to me, I wanted to go to the root cause. And I think the root cause of this problem is that we're in the middle of a national identity crisis. Okay, the things that used to fill our void for purpose as Americans, faith, patriotism, hard work, family, whatever it might be, those things have disappeared. And that leaves a moral vacuum in its wake. And when you have a black hole that runs that deep, that is when poison fills the void. And I think we have an opportunity to fill that void with a sense of purpose, American identity, that runs so deep that it dilutes these woke agendas to irrelevance. And I don't think market solutions alone can deliver that. I don't think a governor of an individual state can deliver that for an entire nation. I think there's no better way to deliver an American national identity in the year 2023 or 2024 than to successfully run for President of the United States and win and revive the actual ideals. Skip, I love the way he said it. the actual ideals that set this nation into motion 250 years ago. Basic rules of the road and concepts, basic concepts of sovereignty. And I think the flip side of that comment about sovereignty is ask ourselves if we are sovereign. There he is, Skip. Ask ourselves if we are sovereign. But we have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what is it within each of us that makes us want to bend the knee to that authority? It's the same thing that made the Israelites want to go bow down to Pharaoh when they were lost in the desert. We're lost in the desert in America today. And I am running for president to revive the ideals that set this nation into motion, to revive the national identity that we miss. And if we can do that, and only if we can do that, can we then stand up to the actual external threats we face, communist China at the top of the list. And so could I do that as a congressman or a governor or as a market participant or a CEO? If the answer to that were yes, then I wouldn't be running for president. That is why I'm running.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you're gonna have some competition. You have some. You're gonna have more. So the question is, there are similar themes, not exactly the way you put it, and they're not exactly your ideas, but a little bit of similarity in some of the other people who are being thought of as running for president. Why should a Republican primary voter in New Hampshire pick you over some of the other folks who might be running?
So look, I think that's going to be a 2024 question. One of my themes right now is that let's not obsess over the question of the who. Let that go for now. Kick that down the road to next year. 2023 should be the year of the what and the why. Okay, what do we stand for as a movement? What do we stand for as conservatives? What do we stand for as Americans? Let's define that. I don't think we have great answers to that question. I have a vision for the answer to that question. I'm going to offer mine. I hope every other candidate who enters this race brings their vision to the table too. Let's have at it. That's going to be good for the Republican Party. It's going to be good for the country. That's what this year needs to be about. By next year this time, you all will be deciding who is going to be the best standard bearer for that vision. So I always believe in answering a question, so I'm going to answer the question. But don't worry about the biographical details. You're going to have a lot of people who are going to come in here bragging about their accomplishments, throwing shade on the next guys. It doesn't matter if we don't actually stand for an affirmative agenda. Now, you ask me, I'll tell you a thing that's true about me, okay? It's not my skin color. It's not my age even. It is the fact that I'm not in politics. I am not a politician, okay? I was on Tucker Carlson. I got in trouble last night with my, where's Ben? Yo, he's in the back of the, he's I don't want to make him the bad guy, but I got in trouble with him. I went on Tucker Carlson's show last night, and it gave me good time on air. We had a great conversation. I was like, oh, that went pretty well. He's like, come on, dude. You didn't mention Vivek2024.com one time on air. I'm a bad politician, but I'm not running as a politician, right? I am a person who builds things. I have built companies from scratch. I built a multi-billion-dollar biotech company that I led as CEO, got 5 drugs that I worked on that are approved. One of them is an approved drug for prostate cancer. Now I'm working on a different kind of cancer, okay? And that cultural cure is going to come in the form of the policy agenda that we're taking all the way up to the White House. And I have a simple vision for running the federal government, okay? The people who we elect to run the government, I'm asking you to elect me as President of the United States. If you elect me as President of the United States, I will run the executive branch of the government. It's a simple proposition, not the permanent state that actually runs the show today. So I have a lot of experience in the private sector, and I share this in common with Donald Trump, who I respect for what he did in 2015. I'll come back to him in a second. I respect what he did in 2015. If he hadn't done what he did in 2015, I probably wouldn't have even thought about doing this. Let's be really honest about that, because it would be a crazy idea. I give him the credit for being the OG version of the outside disruptor, okay? But now I am full credit for that. I find he's a friend. I actually find what he did in 2015 to be inspiring. I'm just gonna be very frank about that. But you know what? He would know this as well as I do. If someone works for you and you can't fire them, that means that they don't actually work for you. It means you work for them. It means you are their slave, okay? And when I look at that relationship between Donald Trump and Anthony Fauci, or between Donald Trump and James Comey, that is not sovereignty. That is not self-governance. That is aristocracy in the guise of democracy. And so if there's one thing that I do more than any other, it is going to be to get into the federal government, to get rid of civil service protections, to say that if I'm president of the United States and you all are electing me to put me there, and I can't work for the federal government for more than 8 years, then by God, nobody who's working for me is going to work for the federal government for more than 8 years either, okay? We will take out half the federal government in size just by head count alone. I'd say the other way we do it is we move them out of Washington, D.C., spread them across the country. Half of them won't even want to move. So we got to slash it down by 75% there. Take what's left, probably half the three-letter alphabet soup from FTC to SEC to God knows what alphabets, TSA. Shut it down. Okay, there's a lot of government agencies. Department of Education, why does that exist as a federal branch of government? This makes no sense to me. Now, it requires some technical solutions, okay? So this is where I'm going to bore you guys. But I'll tell you, the more boring it is, the more you got to pay attention, okay? So there's a 1974 act called the Impoundment Prevention Act that says that if Congress budgets funds for a specific agency, you as the president have to spend it. You know what my view is of Article 2 authority? I actually have read this thing called the Constitution. I'll say absolutely not. I do not have to spend it. In fact, if I'm running the show, I decide how to budget, where that money gets spent. We're going to shut those agencies down. I don't care if you have a civil service protection or not. Yes, I'm going to ask Congress to repeal those civil service protections and replace them with sunset clauses. But if they don't, I believe in Article 2 of the Constitution over an unconstitutional statute. I'm going to fire you anyway. We're going to send that to the Supreme Court, which today's Supreme Court is going to say that they're actually on my side of the table. So that's where I view this movement going, okay? Donald Trump got it started. Give the man credit. Love him. He's a friend. Give him the due credit that he deserves for that. But now it's America First 2.0, okay? Where we take this from here. And I think in order to put America first, we have to rediscover what America is. And I've said it a lot of different ways today, but I'm going to, for the purpose of tonight, use it the way Skip said it. It is about sovereignty. It is about the idea that we, the people, we as citizens, for better or worse, decide how we run this country. Not a permanent state, not an aristocracy, not a quasi-monarchical hybrid of corporate and state power that actually runs the show today. And I am running for president not just to articulate these ideas, but to deliver on them, not as a politician, but as somebody who will get in there, get it done, drop the mic, and hand it off to somebody else to take care of after 4 years.
All right. So I just want to clarify. I'm going to get to audience questions here, but I just want to clarify something there. So in the Constitution, like, Congress comes first, and then the president. Congress still supreme under your view? President supreme? I'm just trying to get some, clarity here.
No one is supreme. That is the whole point of the balance of power. The chief executive runs the executive branch of government.
After Congress tells him what to do, though.
Well,
right?
After Congress passes the laws that they enforce.
Right.
That is different from Congress actually delegating its own responsibilities to a lawmaking authority that actually was never enshrined in the Constitution. I love. This is why I like Drew.
I'm just trying to push you back a little, trying to get some clarity.
No, this is good, because this is good. I like Drew for this reason. I like New Hampshire for this reason. Thinking people. This is refreshing. I like this. Thank you. Jeremy's good for this reason. So this is good. So we got a waterfall of political accountability in this country. Okay. The Constitution says lawmaking authority sits in Congress. Well, what did they do? Over the course of the 70s, 60s, really started Johnson era stuff. I mean, we could maybe even FDR era stuff. Waterfall number one is to the alphabet soup of the federal government. Okay, that's the FTC, EPA, SEC, FDA stuff. Now there's the second step of the waterfall of political accountability to the new alphabet soup of AAPL, of FB, of GOOG, of AMZN. Now delegating even some of that authority to the private sector. And so what I say is we have a three-part system of government. We don't have a fourth state, an administrative state. We don't have a fifth branch of government that operates out of Silicon Valley at the government's pleasure. We have three branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And I intend to keep it that way.
All right.
Croc TV.